Hello everybody, my name is SamElliott64 and welcome to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside...
World of Woodrow, where's Steve?
What have you done? You've done it again. Where has he gone? Is the normal Catholic this weekend again?
I've put him in a box.
How could you? Honestly. Very rude of you. Anyway, we don't have Steve, but we do have someone else from the Florida region, which is at least something. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hi, I'm Matt Spurk. I'm the team captain of Kraken BattleBot.
Matt, welcome back. It's been a long old while since we had you on, and a long old while since we've actually spoke about you this season. You've had some phenomenal fights.
Oh, thank you very much.
I do want to talk about those before we actually get into the episode as a whole, but I also just want to say, I think you have the most durable and entertaining robot going at the moment. I really do.
Yeah, we had to fill in for free shipping and blacksmith and all those bots that could take 3 minutes of abuse. Someone had to do it this year, so.
And spitting fire as well, of course.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The fire is essential.
Absolutely. I think the gap left by free shipping and blacksmith has definitely been well and truly filled by Kraken this year. First fight, of course, was another fire-breathing dragon in Black Dragon. I thought could have gone either way. I'm sure you felt the same thing. It was very close. Mm-hmm. What did you think of the fight itself? It was again a great watch.
Yeah, it was a great match. And for us, it was one of those where we really thought we won after the match. I mean, I was really amped up, and we were big underdogs going into that fight, and I thought we just pulled a huge upset against the top 16 robot, and that was it. That was our fight. And I can see how the judges scored it the way they did. Looking at the scorecard and watching the fight 700 times in a row, like I did.
Trying to analyze each little pixel and see what's going on. Yeah. Yeah,
and it was a couple we got flipped over, a couple times. It was like I know what's happening there, where I'm backing up, and as I back up, she'll naturally wheelie anyway. And so when I wheelie, they can kind of hit it and just give it a little roll. And so I know what's going on. I'm like, well, we just rolled on our back. That's not them hitting us. But from an audience perspective and a judge's perspective, that's them hitting us and us flying back onto our back. So, I could see how they got there. Overall, it was a great match, and it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, not as well as the second match, because I mean, is it fair to say that in the last couple of years, you haven't been the most competitive in terms of you fought big robots. You fought Son of Waiachi last season. You fought Ribbot, who have gone on to do very well. When you drew against a name like Witch Doctor, who have been involved with BattleBots since the show came back, they came second last year. They did so well. They almost beat Bite Force, and then you're sat there and you go, okay, our next match is Witch Doctor with Kraken. What is your kind of initial reaction? Do you think, oh, well, that's that then?
It was both. It was both, right? It was on one hand, it was, oh my God, we get to fight Witch Doctor. It was this really exciting, hey, we're fighting top tier robots, which is what we always wanted to be doing. That's the goal for every team, is to get there and fight the best and get to the playoffs and show what you're made of. Yeah. And then on the other hand, it's like, oh crap, it's Witch Doctor.
yeah, exactly.
So
first main event as well. Pile on the pressure, but also, as you say, the teams, I've noticed a lot this season that, some of the bigger names may not have necessarily got some of the bigger names to fight against. And it's interesting to see sort of a team like yourself. It must be quite an honour, really, to be seen in BattleBots production eyes, that you can go up against the best and put on such an amazing show to really go for it and give an amazing sort of main event performance.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, when the producers they give you, kind of toss you this bone, you got to make the most of that opportunity. You can't lay an egg on that one. You gotta give everything you got, and we tried to do that this season. Go out there and have some fun, and just full on Yeti style driving.
You succeeded. I think in every single fight, it was.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, spectacular.
I remember watching that Witch Doctor fight. I still think it's the best fight this season so far.
Agreed.
Of course, Witch Doctor has had its issues this year with its weapon and what have you. But it was full on. You didn't give him an inch to breathe. It was I mean, it was brilliant. It was. I think it's, a lot of people agree with that. It was really high end stuff, and of course you get a win against Witch Doctor.
Yeah, that was crazy. We didn't expect to win. Like, we're going in expecting to lose, and it was like, all right, we're going to lose, but let's give them 3 minutes.
Yeah, lose with
style.
style.
And let's just make it hard on them. Let's not make it easy on them. And the fact that we pulled out a victory there is just it's mind blowing. It's just you can't put your finger on. Just describe the emotions. It's overwhelming.
A group of us were watching that episode together, and well, not together but apart. And we were saying, like, at the end of that fight, they could honestly, they should take this decision, but we were nervous for the judging this year that, with consistency and everything in it, how it has been, that we were really nervous that they were going to take that from you almost, and because it was such an amazing performance, and you really did dominate that fight, even though it was so back and forth. It was very obvious to us, at least, that you were on top, and I'm glad that the judges agreed with us. Saturday.
Yeah, we went through this. We went through the same emotion when we're talking after. It's like, all right, we think we won, and I actually, kind of turned my head and talked to my father-in-law before they lined us all up in decision. I was like, all right, if we don't win this one, we riot.
Just sit there and pout, like,
Just I'm not talking to you until you change your mind.
Well, thankfully you didn't have to. You did win that fight. And I suppose that kind of neatly brings us to the episode today. Obviously the eighth episode of BattleBots 2020, starting off with Kraken against Huge. Now, I think it's fair to say Huge have also had a pretty up and down season. They had a great fight with Mammoth. It was very entertaining.
Yeah.
The less said about the Hydra fight, the better. I think it's been discussed into the ground at this point. We've
blood pressure just rose about.
Calm yourself, Jevon. It's okay. We're all friends here. Talk us through it. I mean, the hook. You didn't rent the bike rack, which is nice.
Yep.
Was there a little bit of temptation to go for the bike rack?
So there was never. We were never going to put the bike rack on.
Excellent. But
we talked about renting the bike rack and carrying it past the Huge pit just to get the mind games on them, because they like the emotion that Jonathan had after the Hydra fight. Like, you got to remember, this isn't like 3 weeks later. This is like 24 hours later. We're having this fight. So Jonathan is still quite perturbed at this point about what happened.
It's not. It wasn't. I just we discussed it. I discussed it with him off camera because he didn't fancy talking about it, which is fair enough. I can understand, the reaction online was quite visceral with everything going on. I can imagine it was incredibly frustrating, and I think he would have been desperate at that point to prove what his robot could do, because he didn't get to see it against Hydra.
No.
And I think, it would have been very, very good to kind of like almost psych him out with the mind games, but thankfully he didn't do that.
Yeah,
you went with the harpoon.
That's right. Yeah, we did the harpoon. So you got to have something to counter Huge, and I kept telling everybody, I was like, all right, my plan is to wheelie up underneath of them and then bite the middle, and everybody laughed at me. Like, no, it's like, you can't do that. Like, that's not going to happen. You're never going to get that opportunity. And so it was like, all right, the match starts, right? We're going to wheelie and bite them. So. And the harpoon obviously helped with that, because how it was shaped and gave us a little bit extra length on the nose, so it helped kind of scoop us up in there. And we did the harpoon because we thought it kind of fit the theme, I felt like it worked.
We did half wonder if the narwhal horn might be put to use on the bot itself, but alas not.
It was great though. Like, you went straight in there. Huge is not, it's very intimidating. It's not an easy robot to kind of fight. And as you have done all season, you've kind of. Do you to do anything?
Oh no, we're good.
Okay,
sorry.
As you have done all season, you kind of went straight in there, and you kind of thought, okay, well, if I get hit, okay, I'll take a hit and I'll get one back.
Right.
And it worked. And I've never seen Huge's body, apart from when it got split in half against Ice Wave all those years ago. Like, I've never seen it like touched. It hasn't been touched.
Yeah.
And you just go straight in, you grab it, and you just start the flames coming out. It was brilliant. It was lovely to watch. The rest of the fight did kind of take its toll.
Yeah.
Huge, as we said, is very effective at what it does cause a lot of damage. But I think you gave as good as it got.
Yeah. So there was in that match beforehand, before the fight started, like we were talking with them, and I'm trying to like find out if they have solid wheels, right? Because if they put their solid wheels on, our spike isn't going to work, right? So I'm like, oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, they're tuning their robot stuff, and I'm talking to them, and they're pointing at their top armor, and I think it was like 1/8" titanium or something like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, we won't be able to get through that much steel even if we get up there, so don't worry about it. Well, and little did I know they had an AR-500 steel plate, and so they went and swapped their steel plate because they're like, oh, what if he does get up there? So I'm trying to get information from them, and I accidentally give away information to help them out. But so they armored up their top. I don't know that we would have done any damage if we got up. We're really able to get a good bite on them anyway. But it was. I thought it was funny. I'm trying to espionage, and I give away the farm. So
it's it's all part of the, as I say, the fun and games of competing these. Obviously, Huge did a fair bit of that. It didn't do major chassis and structural damage. It was obviously the cosmetic kind of face, if you like, of the Kraken coming peeled away. There's a little bit later in the episode in the kind of the between the main event and the fight before. It was kind of like the little mini ad.
The advert section.
Yeah, I don't know how to describe it. I'm used to British TV problems, but the you kind of explained that nothing major got hit. It was all twisted. It was a bit bent, but for the most part, not too bad. Were you surprised that Huge didn't go a bit further in? I think at one point it was the last hit, right at the end. You kind of stuck on your back. Something's dangling out the back. What was that? What was going on there?
So those were the batteries.
Oh no!
And so what we have the batteries. They're in a little foam box, and they're velcroed with a Velcro strap into the robot. And when I did the Velcro strapping this time, I didn't put it around the batteries. I put it through the little handle we use to carry the batteries. And that little handle just ripped off the foam battery pack when the lid got torn off. And so their little entrails were dangling out there, and Huge got those. So, but fortunately they just exploded and went away. So they didn't stay inside the robot as a giant fireball most of the time. They went somewhere else.
They were severed at least.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something. Obviously you did end up losing.
Yeah.
I think it was, while, the start, it was looking quite good, and obviously the pulling the wheel and bending the wheel out of shape was also very cool. It didn't quite do enough, and, perfectly understandable. Huge did cause the damage. At this point, you're 1-2.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think you'd done enough to crack that 32? Because obviously it is very competitive this year. There's been a lot of surprises, obviously a lot of experienced heads down at 0-2 at this point already, and we'll get to those a bit later on. But did you think, I've done enough here?
Yeah, I would felt pretty confident at this point. I'm feeling we're 1-2, but we lost to Black Dragon by a point. That could have went either way, right? So, let's call it 1.5 and 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Huge clearly beat us. Black Dragon, let's call that one a tie. And we're right there in it. So, and we absolutely had the hardest schedule. No, I don't think anyone else fought 3 top 16 robots this year. So
not
just a crazy difficult schedule.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I'd agree with that. It's been, I think, a bit of a breakout year for you guys. Really, you gotta think it's as much as we said already. It's an art bot, blah blah blah. But it's gone from being an arty crusher to a serious competitor now. Was that? Did you expect that? To the level that you have done, at least.
No. Honestly, if you had told me at the start of the season, all right, your first 3 fights are going to be Black Dragon, Witch Doctor, and Huge, I probably wouldn't have went.
Just chill.
On second thought, we're not going to be able to make it. It's just not going to work out. But no, this is absolutely. I think it was a breakout year for us. I think we've done much better than we have in the previous 2 seasons. And you look at where we started at in 2018, and that bot was terrible. It was beautiful, but it was terrible. And to have the robot that we have now that's just so hard to kill and can, we're very close to being 100%. Like, there's always things you can change, right? There's always things you can tweak and make better and get better. And so we're already working on the design changes for next season to make it better. So
there's a certain love I have for the sort of robots that the casual audience are going to go, oh, that's not going to do anything. What can that do to the big spinners? And then it goes and does exactly what it's meant to do against the big spinners. I mean, you said in the second fight against Witch Doctor, you're designed to fight the big verts. It's sort of optimized for that. And I think watching back this season, it really shows it, because you have always, win or loss, managed to find a way to get a hold of the other robot. And, that it proves that there is more to life than a vertical spinner, and that you can be successful with something that is
unconventional.
Yeah, definitely. And, it works.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, and you look at like our best fights that we've had, and it's like Witch Doctor, Black Dragon, LockJaw in 2018. I mean, those fights where we can kind of attack that small diameter vert is like, that's our bread and butter. That's what we're there for. So, then we get huge, and it was like, well, that's like the exact opposite of what we want to fight. So.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Give the cockamamie something even more cockamamie to fight.
Onto Huge a little bit. I do want to talk about them. Obviously, they're now also at 1 and 2. I think they're going to sneak in as well. I've got a sneaky suspicion. The Hydra fight. Okay, we can talk about that at length, but it's lost to Hydra at the end of the day. It's still a top quality opponent. The Mammoth fight was a bit 50-50 until it was a good shot from Mammoth to get them over the wall, of course, but it wasn't all one-way traffic in the way of Mammoth. No, Huge did get hits. And
yeah, it was close to winning it by the looks of some of the damage pictures and what was said. I think definitely I would, if I were in that position of in the selection committee and looking at robots that are at 1 and 2 that maybe either haven't got a fair shake of it or have got a fair shake of it, haven't performed quite as well, but deserve more of a chance, Huge is definitely up there. I mean, they've never failed to reach the round of 16 in selection. They've been there both times that they've been. Not only that, they, as you said, had a reasonably close fight against Mammoth, even though they did take a loss. I would personally give them a bye for the Hydra fight as form of an apology, and they get a win here. So, these are both two teams who, at the end of this fight, I said, you know what, both of these I can see in the top 32 this year. I mean, over half of the field are going to end up in that top 32. So you look at which robots have had a strong schedule and say, these two, I would give places.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and it's normally in a normal year you get that fourth fight, and that fourth fight is where they can kind of separate out these 1 and 2 robots from the 2 and 1 robots, and they can kind of, all right.
I suppose
you're in the bubble, and that they don't have that bubble fight this year. So for the selection committee, it's really, really difficult year.
I suppose the kind of the fourth fight is the round of 32, isn't it? Like that's kind of your acid test, if you like, But I like it, the fact that it's given the people choosing these robots a headache. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah. in a case of where at the start of this season, when we knew we were getting 3 fights instead of 4, my original thought was, oh, great, it's going to be so clear cut between the 2 and 1s and the 1 and 2s. It's not. It's even more blurry than usual, and you really do have to look at strength of schedule to really see who is deserving of that place, and it's going to be tough for them.
It really is. It really is.
Not want to be in their shoes.
No, absolutely not. Fight number 2 is 2 amphibians in the form of Axolotl and Ribbot. Axolotl getting its first appearance on Fight Night, at least. It's been on the Bounty Hunters episode, if I can speak. Ribbot at 1 and 1. A loss to Mad Cat, I don't think it's too bad, considering Mad Cat is at 3 and 0 at this point. Axolotl didn't really get a chance, did it? Ribbot just flexing its muscles and really delivering some very juicy hits towards the end, and obviously taking off and after the full send at the end, but
Yes, the punishment that was dished out to Axolotl was brutal. Putting it plainly, it was bullying. I feel like the commentators could have been a little kinder to Axolotl. It was a very sort of, I felt quite Jonathan Piercy classic Robot Wars style of, if a robot wasn't doing well, he'd make sure you knew about it. I mean, I've not seen it to this extent in BattleBots, where it's a case of they're like outwardly saying, and what is Axolotl doing? Not a lot. Okay, and we'll talk more about Ribbot now. It was a shame, but you know, at the same time, it's a first year bot. I've heard the story from Alan about how quick the turnaround for Axolotl was. It's another one of these 1 month builds, who they got their CAD done and then built it in such a short time frame. And you know, they were looking for people who were available and were going to be useful to the team in that short window as well. So you know, they are going to come back stronger, I feel, and I am looking forward to what Axolotl has to offer going forwards. I mean, we've made jokes in the past about it being Spinamingo, or as I was talking to Mike Jeffries the other day, he suggested Spingo. You know, nice abbreviation. I like it.
I like it. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, so I think they've learnt a lot. They will come back stronger. They will do things differently for the better. They might do something the same, which have worked out for them. You know, I think they've had some decent fights of what we have seen. I'm looking forward to what this team has to offer coming back. Ribbot, it's just wonderful to see it.
They did a great job, didn't they, really? Yeah. And it's nice to see the horizontal as well, because we've only seen that, you know, we saw that in the fight against Tracer was the first fight, wasn't it? I think, I don't remember it being used much last season.
No, it wasn't used at all, I believe. It was all vert except for one basement fight that they had the big wedge on for Valkyrie.
Yeah.
So again, it's nice to see them, you know, using this horizontal, which clearly packed a punch. It was nice to, when the frog actually came off, you could see all the nice gubbins underneath, and it's just very nice, isn't it? It's a nice
one. Bit got ooted. That was strange.
Yeah.
It was that final hit. Really, there was a lot of power transferred. And I think it wasn't all just Ribbot. I think Axolotl really put in a bit of a punch there as well, because Ribbot got thrown there, and I think had that been slightly closer to a sort of Uta zone, it could have been dangerous territory for Ribbot. You know, I want to feel like they are going to learn something from it. I can see why they've gone in for the big hits, to show that they can do that, and also they don't want to just make it a 2-hit fight, make it interesting. But yeah, maybe don't do it as close to a sidewall as they did.
It might cost them later on. You never
exactly. Know. I still can't believe how much I underrated Ribbot last season. Like after,
well, obviously, Matt, you fought Ribbot in the past. Like how good is it? How good is it?
So like we were fighting Ribbot. Like our first fight last year was Ribbot, and we're like, okay, yeah, there's this funny little robot, and it's got a frog costume on, and it's like, okay, we'll be able to beat this. So it was like, all right, let's look at their Facebook page. You know, doing our espionage. You know, trying to get our,
as you want to do, yeah.
Right, we got to know what the ins and outs, and we started checking out their Facebook page, and it's like, oh crap, like this is like a full billet frame, like this is beautifully well machined. This is like a taller, froggier bite force, and so it was like, okay, we got to take this serious, you know. So it is not a joke bot. It is not I wouldn't even call it an art bot. It is a serious competitor with the frog skin
in a fancy dress. You're right. No, you're right. I think I feel like this season, like you've got to think. Okay, they've now had 3 fights. They've won 2 against, you know, new opposition, admittedly, but they've still won the fight, and they were, I feel, on top against Mad Catter to a point, and then they took their eye off the ball. They could have won that fight as well.
Yeah, you can't take people for granted. You have to finish them. You know, and I you know, the late hit on Axolotl, I personally didn't like it, but I understand, you know.
Yeah, you can't take it.
The fight before, you thought Mad Catter was dead and you didn't hit him, and then they come back and beat you. This fight, you're fighting Axolotl. You don't want them to. You don't take your foot off the gas until they start counting them out. So
No, I agree with you there. Fight number 3 sees Rotator and Big Dill. I have to say, this is for me. I'm relieved for Victor that he's managed to get a win here, because the season that he's had, I know the beta fight was actually his third fight. He said this on record a couple of times. The fight against Valkyrie was brutal. Like, Valkyrie was is not a robot generally that goes for 3 minutes, and it did, and it just kept hitting and just tore panels off. It was nice to see Victor get a win. It was very clever as well, the fact that he went in so underweight. Like, he said it was 215 pounds instead of the normal 250 weight limit, because he didn't want those wheel guards on and Big Dill hooking them and carrying them around, because it could have done it. We saw what it did against Atom. And Big Dill, I thought this was the best that they've driven all season. Like, it looked quite smooth as it was driving around, but the more that Rotator just hit it, you could just see it kind of breaking apart.
Chewing up the wheels, something awful. There was a moment where the front forks were pointing this way, and then they somehow managed to keep trying to lift. They did manage to get a bit of a lift in at one point, which was good to see, that they could still get a hold, even though Victor tried everything to stop that, But yeah, it was a fair old beating for Big Dill, and quite the performance from Rotator, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think this is another fight where you're seeing the difference between, a seasoned veteran that's been through BattleBots for a couple of years versus a brand new robot that's built in a pandemic year. It's getting a new bot to BattleBots is already difficult, and it's so hard. And for all these new builders that have come out there this year, for this to be their first year, to have anything that moves in the arena, my hat is off to you. So much, just an amazing achievement. So, if you didn't win a fight, take pride in the fact that you got there in a difficult year and the circumstances that you did. So. Yeah. And Big Dill and Emmanuel, I think Emmanuel said his wedge got bent underneath early on, and he just kept bending it further and further down, which made the driving worse and worse as the match went on. So
yeah, you kind of, I think it was, if you're looking at it with the wedge pointing forward and you kind of look at it from the back, it's the front right hand side of the wedge that's kind of peeling underneath, and then the back left wheel was ripped away. Which, by the way, I don't really understand why, but like the hubs of the wheels were green. They had them coloured green. You're never going to see it, but I love the fact that they've done it. Like underneath the tyre, it's great, fantastic stuff. Attention to detail is something you gotta respect. Rotator at 1 and 2, I think, also kind of in the same camp as yourself, Matt, and Huge. Like, I would give them a place purely for the fact that the beta fight. Okay, controversial as it was very close. Could have gone either way, and obviously Valkyrie. It went 3 minutes against a team that's doing very well in Valkyrie, and it took damage. It was a brilliant, slugfest of a fight. I think Rotator again is one of those where you kind of have to think, well, why would you not give them a place? Because they've done damage, they've taken hits, they've shown that they can go 3 minutes twice with heavy hitters. What more do you need?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a difficult situation because, a lot of people are saying, well, you can't use a robot's pedigree to put them in. Like, if Rotator didn't have a reputation, would you put them in at 1 and 2? And it's like, well, no, but also Rotator wouldn't have fought Beta and then Valkyrie for their 2 other fights. They would have fought newbies as well. So, that pedigree works both ways, right?
It works for and against you. Yeah, absolutely. Well, a robot that's gained pedigree this year is Jackpot, one of the new teams. They ended up fighting LockJaw. I mean, wowee. I am stunned.
Yes, and Jackpot,
the hat's off.
Jeff and the whole team, amazing work. And you notice the difference with Jackpot is where they started in episode 1 to where they are in episode 8. And again, this is not 8 weeks. This is like 3 days. That team worked so hard to get that robot to be so much better, and it is night and day difference between those 2 robots. I didn't give them a shot. I said LockJaw is going to mop the floor with them, and it was the other way around.
I mean, I think what the obvious thing was at the start was the first hit got rid of LockJaw's belt, I had thought at that point, okay, yes, LockJaw's not got a weapon now, but Donald is such a seasoned veteran. He's so good at driving. We've it's been waxed lyrical about how often he's been able to turn the tide of a fight because he is so good. I thought he was quite poor in this fight. I think he took his eye off the ball a little bit because, Jackpot. Okay, yes, they've worked so hard at improving this machine over the course of the few weeks. We spoke to Jeff earlier in the year, and he basically said he just didn't sleep. That was his strategy of improving Jackpot. And I thought, even without a weapon, I feel like LockJaw would just get the better hand of Jackpot, and Jackpot will eventually just kind of peter out. And it just didn't happen. And I don't know. I just thought that this is me sat in my armchair saying that Donald's not doing very well, but I felt like there was more that he just kept going in for it, and I just thought he's getting hit. What?
Yeah. And
obviously the magic smoke came out again of LockJaw, which is it's a real shame that it keeps happening. But it's the magic smoke
is not a design feature now. I'm pretty sure it's
if they
meant
ever
to
do
be
a
there at this
Hexbug,
point.
If they ever do a Hexbug LockJaw, can we have
little
smoke
vapor waves
out?
coming out? Yeah.
Yeah, I was stunned, and you are right, Matt. You look at the start of the season with Jackpot; it was dragging itself across the floor. Obviously, we found out that was the wheels, and then they discovered in the next fight, okay, the gearing wasn't quite right for these new wheels, so they went back and they stripped it down and put it back together again. This is now basically at this point Jackpot Mark III in the same season
in 3 days.
In 3 days, yeah,
and it was fantastic. It was brilliantly controlled. They did the damage. They gave the hits out, and they knocked LockJaw out.
Yeah, to
move to 3-0 in their debut season with a robot that cost not an insignificant amount of money, in the real world, but like in robot fighting world, it's a snip.
Yeah.
And
I think again, this is a 1 month build team where I'm going to completely flip what I said earlier and say, so it can be done in a month. These are seasoned. I mean, they've been in robot combat for a while. They compete on the small weight scene and everything. I know that Jeff is competing at nearly said Motorama. That's not happening this year. Norwalk in a few weeks. Or next week.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal builder, and you forget that sometimes when you look at teams that are building in a short time frame that you've got to look at what else they're doing as well, or what they've done before. I still say it's probably not advised to do a month build and probably prepare your build a bit longer.
It does make me wonder though, like if this is what they can do in a month, what will they do next year?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like this, like you got to think at this point. Surely you go 3-0. I mean, they're going to get into the bracket. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
What if they're going to they'll probably get invited back.
Yep.
What are they going to produce this year with time on their side, planning? It's a bit scary. It's a bit scary what they could do. Obviously, I hope they stick with the kind of card suits gambling theme, because obviously they are the Vegas team. I think it'd be really cool to see Jackpot's kind of take a new road, if you like. But it's just incredible the fact that they put it together so quickly, so cheaply, and are beating teams like LockJaw. It's just baffling to me.
Can I just say, on a design front as well for Jackpot, I hadn't realised until the sort of photos were coming out for this week's episode that their Shreemech is a one-armed bandit. Mm-hmm. That the motor is all dressed up with the sort of turning wheels. Yeah. I don't play gambling machines. I don't know what any of this stuff is.
The fruit machine, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Fruit machine, that's it. But yeah, it's the Shreemech itself is the lever you pull to do the... the thing.
Obviously we spoke about the glitter as well, all on the spinner. It's they've got the whole thing going, and it's great. It's great to see a new team like turn over the veterans. Sometimes it's nice to get a bit of fresh blood in the sport, and seeing a new. You could see what it meant to Jeff at the end of the fight. Like he was in tears, and it's.
I mean, I would count this as a second big name that they've taken out.
Yeah, they've obviously beat Ghost Raptor as well.
Yeah, they really did a number on Ghost Raptor. And then to beat LockJaw, who is not only a veteran of the sport, but a veteran of the reboot, who has always brought something.
Well, obviously, Matt, you fought them as well before. Like what? Like how difficult is it to fight Donald? Like with a robot like LockJaw as well, it's quite unassuming. I feel like I don't feel like it gets the attention that it necessarily deserves. But like what's it like to fight Donald and LockJaw?
You know going into a match with LockJaw that you're not going to outdrive him, right? Like that's the expectation going in. He's going to outdrive me. I just need to try and do what I can to keep my weapon pointed at him at all time. And that was, Jeff in this case with Jackpot. He just got that weapon pointed right at him, and the speed from Jackpot this fight was amazing. He was just so much faster. And so he was able to get on him and deliver that hit, back away, get the weapon spun up again, and just never gave Donald a chance to get around the side. So I think the driving was really great, and the robot itself was vastly improved from 2 days ago. So just and we talk about the teams that are new teams. If you're gonna have a team, first year team, the most important thing is getting a good team together, a team that's got experience and a team that is bought into it, that's sold on the concept and is ready to work, and it's difficult. There were a lot of these new teams, had a couple of people working on it, and it's like, 2-3 people working to try and build this robot on that short time. It's like you burn yourself out. This team, the Jackpot team, was all in. That whole team was all in.
They were all in. Yeah. Very good.
Unintentional, but I'll take it.
No, I reckon that's premeditated, 100%. Dearie me. Fight number 5. Bloodsport and Chronos. First time we've seen Chronos this season. Obviously, we saw that they fought P1, taking a loss there. Bloodsport, obviously, we've seen a fair amount of. They've obviously had some great wins over Skorpios and Endgame, of course. I'm a bit surprised at the matchup. I can't lie. Considering Bloodsport's at 2-0 at this point, Chronos has had, I think, 1 fight. They've lost to P1. I'm a bit surprised they matched these two up, but I can understand the concept of, let's see if they can handle this type of weapon. Let's say it's almost like if they'd have put them against like a Gigabyte, let's say, might have made more sense. But I get what they're going for. And the answer is they struggled.
Yeah.
To really, I think it's because they just couldn't quite get a hit where they wanted to, because of the way that Chronos is kind of sloped, and the way that the armor, the ring is on the outside as well.
Yeah.
Discuss. I mean,
this is a true case of offense is their best defense. Literally, their ring is thick. It is the biggest bit of armor they could possibly hope for, and Bloodsport struggled to really get purchase. I mean, purchase they did get, but this was a long, and I don't want to say brutal, because it was almost, there wasn't quite as much damage as you would expect, but it was a long and painful fight for both robots. I feel it, I think, went on maybe too long a couple of times, where I thought perhaps camera editing, or maybe just edit this bit out, or I don't know, but by the end of the fight we were like, oh, it's over, thank goodness. Because it was almost, because Chronos didn't do much to retaliate. It was a shame to see. I think Chronos have struggled this season, hearing some stories from in the pits as well, that they have struggled to really get going.
It's a complex design. Let's not forget, it's very, they did mention it briefly in the show, where doing a robot like, say, for example, Gigabyte or Captain Shredderator, it's difficult enough as it is, but then to make it a ring spinner instead of a full shell spinner, it's slightly more complicated, I think. I'm not entirely sure. I've never built a ring spinner in my life, but I imagine it's a bit more difficult to kind of keep the centerpiece flat and level and have something rotating around it, rather than, say, underneath a spinner and kind of have that spinning instead.
Well, you saw it again in this fight, that the whole center section spun as well. Yeah. And it's an issue that Gigabyte had in their first fight, that they had no traction with their wheels, so the whole chassis spinning while they're trying to get the spinner up to speed. So it's almost not producing it's producing the right power, but not in the right places for them to get up to full speed. And Chronos is just a design that I think might suffer from that, because it was doing it last season, but they managed to spin up, but it just takes them a little bit longer than they ideally want to. Bloodsport, meanwhile, can spin up pretty damn quick this season, and they took advantage of that.
Yeah, and the Chronos team, when they got there, within the first, we're still getting set up the first couple of days, get through safety and everything like that. And they said that one of the members of the team was had a potential exposure to COVID. So that entire team had to pack up their pit, and then they moved them to a separate pit area outside of the building. So you're in there, you just get everything set up, you're trying to get through safety, and now all of a sudden you got to pack everything all back up again and move it over,
it's unnecessary
200 feet.
Need.
Yeah, right. It was, and I think they said they were trying out some new weapons or something, new brushless motors or something like that as well. And so, you've got that tuning issue and that a lot of teams struggled with. And, you just don't have, when you're out there by yourself, you don't have, oh, hey, I need this tool, go find it from this guy next door, the Purell reaching over and grabbing a tool and wiping it off with a Lysol wipe and then using it and then wiping it with a Lysol wipe and giving it back type thing. So you don't have that situation when you're segregated from everyone else. So
sure.
They had a lot of hurdles in their way there, but they held up to it, and they took the abuse for Bloodsport, and it pretty
well,
and it kind of made Bloodsport look mortal.
So far, I mean, obviously Bloodsport won the fight. They go 3-0. Where would you put them relative to, say, a Mad Catter, relative to a Jackpot? Because they had two great wins. They obviously beat Skorpios and they beat Endgame.
Yeah. They did a fair amount of damage in both.
In both, they did, absolutely. They ripped the front off Skorpios, and they kind of, caved Endgame's face in, really. That was the only way of really describing it. Where would you put them? Because
it's difficult, because you look at the other 3-0 teams, you've got... let me try and remember without saying something I shouldn't. Who is it? Mad Catter. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got Mad Catter, who, they've won, but they've done a lot of judges' decisions. You've got Jackpot, that has had two strong fights against two reasonable legends of the sport, but then one where they were on the back foot for a lot of it. So they're all quite even. I think potentially Bloodsport goes higher up just because they have won each fight. Though this one went to the judges, they were definitely on top throughout.
Yeah.
Whereas Mad Catter maybe wasn't on top against Fusion until Fusion caught fire, and maybe wasn't on top until Ribbot decided to do Ribbot things. It's an issue, really. It's difficult because you've really got to weigh up now what you want to see from each of these robots. Do you want to see a robot that has won 3 fights strongly, or do you want to see a robot that has won 3 fights through determination, grit, and
blood, sweat, and tears?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So maybe sort of if we're looking at the 3 that are 3-0 now, I would potentially seed them at 1. But potentially with Jackpot very close behind. And then Mad Catter in a 3.
It's close. It is close with the 3 of them. And I'm glad I don't have to choose, to be honest with you,
yeah.
Because it would be a massive headache for me. I suppose we should move on to the penultimate fight between War Easy and Fusion. I do feel a little sorry for War Easy, because this is their 3rd fight. They've had 2 fights cut. The first one against Axolotl was cut. The second one against Slammo, which is quite interesting news, was also cut. Obviously, Slammo moving it to 2-0 now, which...
Come on, Granby.
what a guy. What a guy. And then you get paired against Fusion, which isn't a particularly nice draw.
No.
Fusion... I don't know what to think about Fusion. I know it's not a first-year team, but it's a first-year, but it's going to have issues. They had issues in the first fight with Mad Catter. Second fight against Aegis, they did a fair amount of damage. And they did a fair amount of damage here against War Easy as well. It just seems like there's something not quite right. They keep snagging the floor. And I know this has been a problem for lots of teams over the years, but they really have problems going front on with the vert at the front.
Mm.
They keep snagging on that floor. I do wonder if they just turned it round and went the rear spinner, because that seems to be the one that's doing the damage at the moment. Like in every fight they've had, it's been the rear spinner that's been doing more work.
Watching their test videos, the vert is mad amounts of power. It is.
I mean, they both
crazy
are.
powerful. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I can see why they would want to lead with the vert potentially. But at the same time, we know for a fact that the arena floor is not laid even, because they don't want everybody to be playing the ground clearance game. And I can understand that, because otherwise it just becomes a boring who's lower fight. And they don't want to see that, and that's fine. So I think a lot of teams thinking that this is a brand new floor and we're going to be able to get under everything have then realised,
they've had a nasty surprise.
We can't get under anything. It is interesting to note that this is the second Waiachi robot that has struggled with ground clearance on the new floor. So yeah, you have to wonder if this was a tactic of theirs, thinking, well, we can get lower with the vert, and the vert is going to do massive amounts of power. You want to go vert on vert potentially, because if you're looking at the physics of vert versus horizontal, more often than not, vert's going to win. Not every time, but more often than not. So you want to see if your vert is better than the other guy's vert, and they couldn't prove either way. And then the horizontal came in and did all the damage, and Fusion go 2-1.
Yeah.
So now we had the conversation. Where do you put the 1 and 2 for bots versus the 2 and 1? So now you've got Fusion at 2 and 1, and you've got Huge and Kraken and yeah.
See, for me, I put Huge and Kraken above Fusion, because Fusion's wins are against Aegis, which is a paper mache robot. And
it's nice underneath. Like
we got
to see bits underneath, but it's coated in paper.
You're meant
mache,
to keep the inside on the inside, not on the outside. And War Easy, who is a first time.
War Easy has got a win to its name as well, which I suppose we should put. The fight against Axolotl, it did win.
I suppose both of these robots were at 1 and 1.
They were,
which rather tells you why they've done this fight. But again, it's a 1 and 1, whereas you look at who they've fought, it's the same sort of scenarios I spoke about last week when you got Beta versus Rusty. I mean, sure, you could do that, but at the same time,
why would you?
That's a nasty move.
I don't know.
War Easy versus Rusty. I'm there for it.
Yeah, I'm there for that. I don't know. I do feel a bit sorry as well in terms of for War Easy, because, as I said, this is their third fight. You wait all season to get your first fight shown on TV, on BattleBots, and it's over in seconds. And I do feel a little bit sorry for them. I hope that they got to do some kind of bounty hunter stuff later on. I don't know for sure. We can't really discuss if they're in or not, but I hope that they do get to at least have a bit more fun in the arena. It would be nice, wouldn't it? So, main event time. It's Tombstone and Skorpios. I'm going to go to Matt straight away here, because I'm not going to take anything away from the Skorpios team. Phenomenal job to go in the arena and beat Tombstone. Brilliant stuff. Where do you stand on the count out?
Oh boy.
Because so just to clear this up, I don't think the result of the fight would have changed either way. I still think Skorpios would have gone on to win the fight, because the damage sustained to Tombstone was critical. As much as Skorpios was getting peeled and what have you, it was still functioning fairly as standard, and I still think Skorpios would have gone on to win. But there's always that chance it doesn't happen. Where do you stand?
I think they got it wrong. I like John, the ref. He's a great guy. But I think he realized he got it wrong after the fact. In some of the conversations that I heard, he realized he counted that one out too soon. Because normally they give you, they'll warn you, hey, I need to see some movement, and hey, I need to see some movement, and you need to show a straight line, okay, I'm going to the red square, and it's a little bit more difficult this year because you're talking, they're separate, so you're talking back and forth through a microphone.
And let's not forget, it is the heat of the moment as well. You can't, you've got to make a split-second decision. You can't repeat. Exactly. You can't replay it 3 seconds later. You can't pause the fight and say, "Okay, guys, can we see if Tombstone can move?" Okay, carry on. It's not like, say, a boxing fight where you can kind of get the fighters apart for a couple of seconds and say, "All right, You're right. You're right. Okay, carry on. It's you've got 3 minutes. If you make a call, you've got to stick with it, which I understand.
Right. There's no VAR. There's no instant replay.
Thank God there's no VAR. God.
The other thing is the count can stop, and I don't understand.
Well, he did. So I've watched this fight back a couple of times. There's a little bit. There's at 6 seconds, and I think he stops. John stops, and he kind of goes 6. There's a second or two, and then he carries on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Regardless, I think it's a really interesting topic. Jevon, we kind of discussed this. The rules about translational movement, and are they? Tombstone is one of those where it can drive very well on one wheel because of the way that the spinner works.
There's a moment at the very end of this fight where you see Tombstone just go straight forwards, and that is they're translating. They are moving in a straight line, and it's a
robot
moment.
Fighting show.
Yeah, it's an upsetting moment, even because Skorpios was still engaging. And, in the past, they've asked the robot to back off, as you said, to see if the robot is actually moving.
With Rotator and Big Dill, for example.
Yeah, there are moments in this fight where I see Tombstone going round in circles. And it's those moments that you start to think, okay, now I'm going to ask, can I see some movement? Are you going to move? Can you move? And if it's a yes, carry on fighting. If it's a no, start counting. And if they then do move, you stop the count and you let the fight continue. As you said, Sam, I think this fight would have gone to Skorpios either way. I personally would have loved to have seen 3 minutes of this fight.
Especially as they were crippled toward as the fight's coming to an end, they're both kind of suffering quite a lot. But their weapons are both still going.
Can you imagine the drama if both robots are then going one wheel and starting to really struggle to move? Yeah. And there was a moment in this fight where Skorpios sort of stops moving on one wheel. But I think they're caught on something, and then they get free of it, and then they carry on going. Their wheels were
drama aside, it was a phenomenal fight.
Beautiful. Great fight.
And we've kind of criticised Skorpios for its lack of killing power this year with its weapon. Obviously, I know it's designed to be used in such a way, but they hit the wheel.
Yeah, there is no argument that just hit that wheel and caused that damage.
As much as it may have taken more from that, it hit the wheel very clearly. I think it was pretty much the first hit where they collide, and then Tombstone's kind of stuck on the plough. It does get a nice shot on the wheel, and eventually that's the wheel that comes off. The video doesn't lie, but it leaves a bit of a sour. Well, it leaves a bit of a sour taste. But I think either way, it's a brilliant showcase of two good machines.
Less about controversy, more about a simple mistake that was made in the heat of the moment, and. Yep. There will be people, myself included, who for the last few days has been going, oh, God, this show and its controversy, shake my fist at the sky. But actually, no, this is an honest-to-God mistake from John Rumar, and
he doesn't make them often.
No, he doesn't. No. We can give him this one, and you can see that Ray is upset. I actually asked the Skorpios team, was something that we didn't see in this fight cut? And they said no, it was more a case of they didn't hear the count out. They didn't. I think they said there was a countdown going.
They felt it was a bit strange as well that it went as early as it did. Let's be clear here. So
I don't think it changes the result, though. I think the result of the fight was going to be the same. So it just was. Are you gonna win it 2 minutes and 40 seconds, or are you gonna win it 3 minutes? You
got to take what you can take. And as I said, it was a great watch, up until that point, regardless. So.
And bearing in mind that Skorpios has faced nothing but horizontals this season.
I know,
nothing but horizontals. Good Lord, we can't talk about bounty, but the trend does not stop.
Well, let's face it. Skorpios is in the Ice Wave. Bounty Hunters episode. If he gets to the final, he's facing another one.
They're going for it.
Do you know what I mean? They just love a horizontal to Skorpios, don't they?
Oh man. It'd be interesting to see if this version of Skorpios can go up against a different weapon type at this point.
I hope so. One thing I do want to ask before we kind of wrap up the episode as a whole. There's been a lot of posts. I'm sure it's been spotted on the Facebook groups and what have you. Has Tombstone lost it? Are they past it? No, of course they're not. You have to look at who they faced this year. Okay, Endgame. the endgame fight was kind of a freak moment where, okay, yes, Tombstone, I still think the result would have been the same, but they got stuck on the side, they're kind of struggling on the one side, and endgame got a great hit and knocked them out. Job done. There was not much fight there. The Slapbox fight, I mean, it was a first-year competitor, yes, of course, but they've still got to beat who's in front of them. And in this fight, we see them shredding through Skorpios' front and like hitting the wheel over and over again. I'm surprised Skorpios survived as long as it did. People saying that, Tombstone, it's old news. You can't underestimate Tombstone. You cannot. At your peril.
At the end of the day, Tombstone.
Yeah, it'll hit you hard.
Yeah, stand next to that test box when Tombstone starts spinning up your blade and tell me that Tombstone has lost anything. Tombstone is just as tough as he's always been.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a testament to how strong Skorpios is and how resilient Skorpios is than Tombstone losing something.
I think they pretty much as well. Like you got to think they both get in the bracket here, surely, don't they? Like, you can't knock Tombstone out because as we've said already, I know you can't put people in on reputation, but I think for Tombstone you can pretty much make an exception because they are the only holders of a giant nut in the field, and it's Tombstone.
And quite honestly, what's his name? Steve. That's his name. Steve was saying a few episodes ago about sort of sandbaggers tactic of, you get a low seeding and you bash your way through the competition that way. Personally, and it's not just because you're here, Matt, but I put Kraken and Huge, honestly, above Tombstone if I was seeding the bracket, because I would say that on the whole you faced three reasonably strong opponents. As you said, all three of yours were top 16 competitors, whereas Ray's only win here is against Slapbox, which is, as you said, Sam, a first-year competitor. And all it really did, it took off the front wedges and the wheels. He
did Tombstone things.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what he does.
He did what he needed to do to win.
Yeah,
and
right. It's a difficult one, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of debate of this in the next few weeks. We are getting to the stage of the season where people are finishing their seasons, and the fans will start saying, "Oh, who's going to get in the bracket?" It's going to be very interesting to talk about. I can't wait to kind of unpack it all, really. But I think both of these two come out of winners in this one. Obviously, Ray was clearly gutted at the end because he wants to win every fight. Like, of course he does, but.
And as a true sportsman, he tried to rationale it in his head, and he stayed professional and congratulated the other team, and
it was great to watch the Skorpios team celebrate as well. Like you saw how much it meant to Zach and the team.
4 years of planning. I mean, they are one of the designs that are designed to face Tombstone. They've got the big armor, they've got the plow that sort of goes underneath the opponents and has the little forks just to get in there. Tombstone's got the sort of lattice effect on the top. Well, they did have on the top and bottom that you could get a hold of in previous seasons. They have planned. They have worked hard to get to Tombstone, and they have done really, really well.
They've done their job.
Yep.
That pretty much sums up the 8th episode of BattleBots 2020. Matt, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you as ever. If you don't get into the bracket, which I think you will do, but obviously if you don't, then that's obviously the decision. Like, would you have been disappointed? Like, would you have been happy with the season that you've had, given all the trials and tribulations you've had? Would you be disappointed going home at this point?
We definitely would have rioted, but we would have felt bad afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I would say if we don't get into the top of 32, we'd be disappointed. Just that they didn't see us as tournament worthy. But I'm so happy with how we've done this season. I'm so proud of our. It was just me, my dad, my father-in-law. I mean, it's quarter of the team we normally have.
You normally have a very large team. Obviously, COVID restrictions, notwithstanding, I'm sure it was very unusual going in with just the three of you.
Right. Yeah. It was not ideal by any stretch of the imagination.
You are usually one of the biggest teams.
We have a surprisingly large robot. We make up for it by having a surprisingly large team.
I was just saying, there was people questioning, why is Huge so small? I'm like, no, Kraken's just big.
Kraken is huge.
It's a big old
Kraken
thing.
is huge. Huge is small.
And on that note, Yeah, I think that's pretty much summed everything up. So with that said, I have been Sam Elliott 64.
I've been World of Woodrow.
And I'm Matthew Spurk.
And at least me and Jevon will see you next week for more BattleBots. I hope you've enjoyed this week. I thought this was a great episode, so I hope everyone else enjoyed it at home as well. So, with that said, see you then.